You did it. You clicked on our video link. We applaud your curiosity. I'm Tracy Ragan, CEO of DeployHub, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about DeployHub and give you a demo. But first, let's think about microservices. DeployHub is a microservice management platform that tracks and versions your microservices across clusters. Its goal is to simplify microservices because they can be extremely complex. The complexity of microservices really revolve around what we often call microservice sprawl and drift, different versions of microservices running in different clusters, and understanding the blast radius. If you're going to push a microservice out, who are you going to impact? We manage the blast radius of all your deployed enterprise microservices to increase your application reuse by up to 33%, according to some of our early adopters, saving you huge costs in development while also increasing your application quality. This is the goal of DeployHub and why you need it. Because if you can't manage your blast radius, if you don't understand where you're deploying your microservices and you don't understand how they're impacting your cluster when you update them, then you're going to have a complex environment when it comes to a cloud-native, service-oriented architecture using microservices. Let me show you a demo. So DeployHub starts your microservice journey by tracking things at a domain level. Now, if you've ever worked in a service-oriented architecture or worked in design, you'll understand how important that a domain-driven design architecture it can be. Tracking things based on solution spaces or problem spaces, which are often referred to, allows you to organize a microservice in a particular area. What you're seeing here, there are 4 domains with subdomains. We're going to really dive down into 3 of these. The store service domain and the purchase processing domain, those are what we call catalog domains. Microservice developers or API developers publish their services to these domains. Now, in this case, in the purchase processing, we've broken it down into further subdomains. Subdomains simply allow you to more granularly track your organization of your services. We have currency, checkout, cart, payment, and shipping. Now over here, we have the hipster store. That is our product. And we have a dev, test, prod subdomain, and those map to the environments to which you would deploy something, or where we're tracking the inventory. So let's jump up to the highest level. Applications, the elusive applications in the microservice world. These don't actually exist anymore in a microservice world. There's always a discussion about what an application is in a microservice world. We also could call this a product. This is what we are delivering to our end users. It's not a single microservice. It's a collection of microservices. And a collection of microservices create a product, what we call an application. If you look at our hipster store 4th of July sale, you can see up here that it indicates that we have a application base version for the hipster store 4th of July sale. This is how we prime the pump. Once a microservice developer has published their microservice, an application team can consume them and package them. This is a very common kind of blueprint designer you might see in a more traditional release automation solution. And this is how we allow application teams to tell us what they're using. Now, if we take a look at this right-hand side component selector, you'll see the hipster store. You'll see its subdomains, and you'll also see that they have their own service called the front end. Now, the front end is being used right here. But all of these other components, those are being pulled from external locations. So let's take a look at the cart service. The cart service, when they initially defined their base version of their application, that came from the GC6 version. And that's it represented here in this little square. Now, once your application is defined, we build a software bill of material report based on the components that it's consuming, and we also track where it has been deployed. So anytime you push something out, we're going to track what was deployed with it. In this case, the hipster store cluster apparently had none of these microservices running, so everything was deployed as a monolithic package. Now, all is right with the world until we get a change in the components. Microservices are independently deployed objects, and they're moving across the standards pipeline on a pretty high frequency basis. And in our case, we have a new cart service, the GAF version of the cart service. Let's drive down into that. The GAF version of the cart service, over on this left-hand side, you see the general information about that cart service, and let's cover some of that. We know that it was created via Circle CI pipeline, build number 179. We also see that the deployment step is done by Helm, and the cart service chart is stored in a cart service museum, and that's where we can find it. We also can see that it's being registered to Quay, and when a new component has been registered to the container registry, that's when DeployHub wakes up, grabs this SHA and digest and tag information, and that's what we use to create a new version. Now you see over here we have the cart service GAF version that maps to the tag. You also see these pink boxes. This is your blast radius. We know before you ever deploy that if you push this cart service out, it will impact these three different applications. Now these three applications could be running in your same cluster depending on how you have your environment set up. In that case, we are notifying the teams that a new update to the cart service is about to come out. And so if there's a problem, they may know it, that's the cart service that created it. If you have all of these running in different clusters, then you know that you have to deploy the cart service to all the clusters to make sure you don't have a microservice drift, meaning that one cluster who needs a microservice is still running on an older version. Now, if we go back to the application level and we take a look at what happened at the application level, we now have a new version of the application. Anytime an underlying component of an application is updated, that causes you to have a new version of your application. So we're creating logical views of your application. If we take a look at that, we can see the new BOM report, and down here, something pretty important. We can see now that the cart service was the only thing that got changed. Here's a difference report between the base version of the Hipster store and the 1.2.9.1 version. We know now that that was created because the cart service was updated. Again, we know this before you send it out. We know it from the component side. But if it is deployed, we're going to track the differences based on the cluster, because after all, now in a microservices world, a new application is created when a new microservice is updated, which means for every cluster, you're going to have different versions of your application, which is correct. Dev, test, and prod are always running on different versions. We're tracking that for you. So that's how we track the blast radius and your versions. Hope you enjoyed the demo. And thank you for coming to CDCon.